Mainstream people have been living in an artificial world, and that world is collapsing. And that's why they're freaking out and panicking. But to understand how this artificial world exists, realize the origins of this illusion, this spell that is cast into the minds of the mainstream masses. They get their information from controlled sources like mainstream media, big tech, which is in the disinformation industry, or false education through universities and public schooling, or official government announcements, authorities who specialize in promoting falsehoods under the label of science or medicine. What most mainstream people believe, that entire ecosystem of thoughts and beliefs and rules and laws and understandings, is utterly false. Almost everything they think they know is false. What they think they know about climate change isn't real. What they think they know about money and finance and the stock market, none of that's real either. What they think they know about vaccines or COVID or even virology, also not real. And remember, the mainstream masses have been so brainwashed, they actually believe in transgenderism. They believe a man can become a woman, or that a man can get pregnant, or that a woman can create sperm. This is what they believe. That's how far from reality they have been drawn by the establishment lies and propaganda narratives. What's happening now, though, as reality kicks in, is going to rock their world in ways they never imagined could occur. And the best illustration of this is found in Western Europe. There, the government leaders and the citizens thought that they could pursue green lifestyles by shutting down the entire infrastructure of domestic energy production. They thought, hey, if we just shut down all the nuclear power plants and coal power plants and fossil fuels and pipelines, then, well, we can get energy from somewhere else and we can be green. But we'll let Russia, for example, maintain the dirty business of energy harvesting and distribution. And by adhering to that belief, Western Europeans constructed another layer of their artificial reality, believing that they could live the lifestyles of consuming energy, the luxury of having energy, without having to touch it, without having to mine it, without having to burn it. And so that illusion persisted for a while, until today. Today, Western Europe has run out of energy because Russia has shut off most of the gas in the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. And Nord Stream 2 now is a distant memory. So what happens next? The people of Western Europe across Germany, Poland, France, the UK, Spain, Italy, Greece, and other countries, they will freeze and they will starve this coming winter. And one of the European leaders is now on the record saying that the citizens of Western Europe will only have to endure this for 5 to 10 winters. Why 5 to 10? Because that's how long it will take them to rebuild the infrastructure that they tore down to appease the whines and cries of a teenage girl named Greta Thunberg, who claimed, "How dare you use fossil fuels?" And now her pleas have thrust Western Europe into a collapse scenario from which these nations may never recover. Germany will be plunged into an industrial and economic collapse. The humanitarian catastrophe that is about to be unleashed in this coming winter, beginning in just a few months, will be unimaginable. There will be no hot water, no heated buildings, and because of the loss of natural gas, the fertilizer production facilities that convert hydrocarbons into ammonia using atmospheric nitrogen, they have just shut down in Poland. And a month ago, CF Industries shut down in the UK. We now have 3 major fertilizer plants in the EU shutting down, which means that Europe will not be able to fertilize their crops next spring. And that means the starvation, the destitution, has only just begun. And what happened to Sri Lanka is going to happen to Germany. The total collapse of society is coming. It will happen to the United Kingdom. It will happen in France. It will happen in Poland and many other countries. It is now inevitable. It is baked in. And that's what happens when the illusions collapse and reality inserts itself into your illusion. Because it's fun to pretend on a national level, to pretend that you're green, to pretend that you're saving the earth when you're actually just destroying the atmospheric chemistry of carbon dioxide and hurting crop production by removing CO2. It's all pretend. You can pretend that nitrogen is a pollutant, and you can pretend that you're saving the earth by banning fertilizer. And that's exactly what's going on, by the way, in the Netherlands and Scotland and Ireland, and it also happened in Sri Lanka. But in reality, you're just committing suicide. You're just committing suicide. It's like with COVID and the vaccines. You can pretend that the vaccines will stop COVID, but they don't. You can pretend that masks protect you from an invisible, catapulting viral mass that's flying around the room. You can pretend all day with your masks, and you can force other people to pretend. You can all play the pretend game and wear masks and take the shots and stand behind plexiglass and practice social distancing, but it doesn't make it real. The entire thing was a fraud. All fake. The vaccines don't stop infections. The masks don't stop viruses. The social distancing was never effective, and the economic shutdowns did nothing to stop the virus, but they did everything to cause economic collapse. But people believed it the entire time because they preferred to live in their world of illusions. There are popular delusions in the madness of crowds. That's what we have witnessed these past few years. And when it comes to finance and the stock market, well, that illusion has been taking place for decades. We are living in an artificial financial environment that is coming to an end. And in this environment of artificially low inflation rates and artificially high stock market valuations stemming from money printing and the decoupling of the money supply from physical gold, which began in 1971, this illusion is also on track to collapse, and it must collapse because you can't suspend reality forever. You can't print money forever. And yes, you can create new theories. You can call it MMT, magical monetary theory. You can print all the money you want for a while and pretend it's not causing inflation and pretend the currency still has some value. But in the end, reality intervenes. Your dollar collapses. The currency is done. The joke goes, where do bankers live? And the answer is in debasement, because that's what they're doing to the currency, debasing it, leaving us with nothing of value, unless you're smart enough to acquire physical gold and silver in advance, which more and more people are doing, and the world's wealthy elite are stockpiling metals at a pace that's never been seen before. They're emptying the vaults all around the world, including the COMEX gold vaults. The wealthy know what's happening, they know what's coming, but the oblivious masses are still living in their fairy tale delusional lands where everything's awesome, where the vaccines work and the stock market's going to go up and housing prices will never fall, and Joe Biden is a popular president elected by the majority, and CNN is a trusted news authority, and the FDA would never allow something to be used if it wasn't proven safe and effective. That's their delusional world. So what happens next? The illusions are collapsing. The psychological impact of the shattering of someone's artificial reality is beyond devastating. Many of these people will snap. Many of them will commit suicide. Many of them will go insane. Some of them will lash out with violence. Some of them will turn to substance abuse. Some of them will become numb. But very few will embrace the reality as it's happening because they can't. Psychologically, they are tied to the illusion. They've invested in it. They've taken the vaccine shots. They can't say, oh, that was a mistake. That almost never happens. Very few people are able to come out and say, wow, that was a mistake. I injected my body with something that turns out to be dangerous and I was wrong and I shouldn't have done that. Very few people can do that. Most will double down and triple down and they will say, The reason they're sick is because, well, they need more vaccines. Must be lacking a booster or two. That's the logic they will use to try to justify their suicide. Same thing with the stock market. As the collapse gets underway, or even as dollars begin to collapse, the very same people who are being destroyed by that collapse, they will double down. They will say, well, now is the time to buy more stocks. Look, they're collapsing. Must be a great time to buy. And they will be wiped out. Now, if you're buying something that's physical and real, that has intrinsic value, that's getting cheaper, that's different. If you're buying used vehicles as they're falling in price, or you're buying homes as investment properties as they're falling in price, or you're buying even gold and silver as it's falling in price, that's different because those things have intrinsic value. But if you're buying overpriced stocks or jumping into more dollars and treasury bills as it's all losing value and it's backed by nothing, that's financial suicide. That's insane. We haven't even talked about the world of food abundance and food scarcity. The illusion is that there's plenty of food all the time everywhere, that the grocery store shelves are fully stocked and they will never run out. Somehow the shelves just are magically restocked in the middle of the night. The food comes from somewhere. The reality is that the global food supply is collapsing. 2/3 of the United States is in some form of a drought right now, including most of the farmland. California, there are hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland that aren't even being planted. And CF Industries, the primary fertilizer supplier in the United States, was told by Union Pacific Railroad, we can't carry your loads anymore. Won't be able to deliver fertilizer to farmers. There are droughts happening across Europe. Corn production is collapsing there. There are droughts in South America. There are even droughts in some parts of China right now. Global food production is collapsing due to multiple causes, not just lack of water, but also lack of fertilizer, lack of parts for agricultural equipment, and the high price of diesel. As a result, right now, in early September 2022, the oblivious masses are not aware that they are eating the last of the easy food. This is it, the window's closing. From here forward, food will become expensive and scarce, and there won't be enough food to feed the 8 billion people living on planet Earth. In 2023, this is going to hit home and hit hard. As many as 4 billion people will go hungry. Some will face starvation and death. Famine will be on the minds of everyone all around the world. And just as food prices are going through the roof and food scarcity is skyrocketing, energy prices will bankrupt families and businesses. Energy is going through the roof. In some European countries right now, the cost per kilowatt hour of electricity is 15 times higher than it was last summer. 15 times higher, and we're not even into winter. It will likely go to 25 times higher if Russia completely cuts off the gas supply through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. Imagine paying 25 times more than you used to for electricity. Imagine what it will cost to charge an electric vehicle. There's another illusion of the oblivious masses. They think that electric cars are inexpensive and green and cheap to operate. Except soon, in Europe, it will cost you $500 equivalent to charge your electric car. Instead of $50 for a tank of gas, $500 equivalent to charge a car. That means people won't drive. That means you have no transportation options. And on top of that, you have no hot water, you have no electricity, and no food that you can afford. Western Europe will collapse. It is collapsing right now. The United States will also collapse, but for a different reason, most likely a financial collapse and the breakup of the Union, perhaps expressed through secession or nullification or even regional civil wars. None of these first world Western countries have any real future unless they change course. And they are not changing course. They are doubling down on stupid. It's like they've all joined a suicide cult, and they're trying to kill their own citizens, no matter what it takes. Starvation, freezing, violence, vaccines, biological weapons, whatever it takes. They're trying to kill their own people. By the time the oblivious masses wake up to that, they will be days away from death, because they will never get it. Anybody who is capable of getting it would have already become aware by now. So thank God that you are aware, you listening to this, but recognize that you're living among a society of oblivious zombies who will never become aware.